Spellbooks in AVOWED are incredibly powerful, and there's a whole bunch of unique ones you can get, which will unlock more advanced spells if you put points into the Grimoire Mastery ability. So definitely recommended that you try and pick up some of these unique ones. Of course, there's a whole bunch of other Grimoire books that you can buy, and I'm going to go through a little few tips on them at the end of the video as well. But let's start off with the unique locations for all the special books you can get in AVOWED. Let's go. So first off, we're going to get anextlis Grimoire, which gives you Fan of Flames, Arcane Veil, Grimoire Snap, as well as Missile Salvo. Absolutely great beginner Grimoire, and it's absolutely free and easy to pick up. You'll find it next to a skeleton in Ivana's Threshold. Next door, you'll also find the Pyromancer's Key, which opens up a special chest near maybe the Mausoleum and Cemetery. Now, I say it's easy to get, but if you're relatively still new and haven't explored part of the Fractured Shore, then it might still be a bit complicated. But here we're going through the exit point, we're going to be jumping over the gaps and just basically following the path through, and that's where we need to get to, them upper heights where you can see the wooden drawbridge. You'll see across this bridge, there's be an empty house with some bandits outside. Once they've taken care of, turn right and then keep following the path up, and then you can take another right. Otherwise, if you found the Mausoleum, go past it and you should see the same pretty much area. Then it's a case of just making your way through, parkouring up and get yourself all the way to the top by these cliffs. There'll be some more Zurips and a tiny little encampment nearby as well, so take care of them. And of course, go across the bridge and pick up any loot that you might see or find on this small little island here. But otherwise, turn back round and through this little opening, you will find, if you're quick enough, someone about to make themselves explode because they're messing around with things they shouldn't. I was a bit too slow here. I thought it was going to be an enemy. So yeah, I only saw the dust. And there you go. Anextlis Grimoire. Just a little note that none of these Grimoires can be enchanted. So 2 level 1 spells, a level 5 and a level 10, meaning at least even in the early stages you'll get the benefit of the Fire Flames, as well as the Arcane Veil, which gives you extra protection. So for that reason, I think it's actually really worth it. As said, go ahead and put some points into Grimoire Master and you'll unlock the Missile Salvo as well as the Grimoire Snap. I'm not a big fan of the Grimoire Snap. It does do stun damage and pushes enemies away, but I would say it's still not as great as some of the other spells that you can get kind of at that level. And the Missile Salvo has to be really close to an enemy, and it only focuses on one enemy as it will fire pellets from the ball. So I wouldn't necessarily go ahead and upgrade this to the max, maybe just through the first stages of exploring the Dawnshore. Next up, we've got Bethel's Grimoire. This can be actually bought from Merlin, the NPC trader inside the market town in Paradis. It should be about 450 gold. All depends on what level you are, but that's the base level stat, I do believe. Giving you Corrosive Siphon, which gives you enemies health when you poison them. Arcane Veil, which we've seen and spoke about, gives you protection for up to 25%. They nerfed it from 50 after one of their first patches. And of course, Arcane Veil stops anyone from interrupting your spells being cast. Also gives Parasitic Staff as well as Blizzard. So in real level terms, this is one of the best Grimoires you can pick up, where you won't need high level spells or points into maybe Grimoire Master too much. In fact, you only need 1 point so you can activate the Blizzard spell. And for sure, I prefer this to Anextlis Grimoire. I think it's much more useful. The only maybe weakness is the Parasitic Staff, as it can give you some essence, but I just don't like using a lot of the summon weapons in the game, and I feel like you get plenty of opportunities to pick up some of the essence potions. It's not really as needed, but the other powers are all great and good, and this definitely would be one that I would upgrade along the way until we get hold of the next one perhaps. So 2 in Dawnshore, 2 in Emerald Stairs. We're heading south of Delmagon Glade, pretty much to the southwest of the map. Just underneath you'll find Pargran's Cache, guarded by a whole bunch of skeletons. Also, once you took care of them, there'll be a doorway that you can go inside the ruins. Recommended that you bring some lightning seed bombs, although you can probably find some here anyway, or Giata as she can activate them, or just you using a shock spell yourself. There'll be a couple of shadows inside as well you need to take care of, but otherwise that's it danger wise. You can't get in the main gate, but if you head to the left there'll be a small room and a gap where you can activate one of the shock pads and then go into the main room and you'll be able to pick up old Cuaras Grimoire. And just a side note, in the main room you'll then be able to look through a gap and activate the second doorway that was on the right hand side of this dungeon that you couldn't open, and this way you'll be able to go and get some extra little loot that's inside here too, including Awakened Ardra. So I really like this one because it's got a mix and blend of all of the elemental spells. Although they are going to be pretty much level 10, only Chill Blades is going to be one that you can access unless you've put some points into the Grimoire Master or bought them individually, of course. You can unlock some of these spells individually, you don't need necessarily the Grimoire Mastery to go ahead and use them. So of course Ring of Fire is going to give you protection fire, so any enemies get close, that will start burning them, particularly good for Sporelings and just a whole host of creatures, to be honest. The Pool of Aurorite though is a level 15 spell which you saw me just use on that Sporeling, and it will throw enemies up into the air and leave them there. It doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage against them, I don't think, but it does mean that you can concentrate on other enemies or obviously go ahead and hit them without them hitting you. The lightning storm damage is pretty good, it's pretty wide, and again hitting enemies in that same space is going to be pretty good. And obviously blizzard as well, which is really good at pinpoint accuracy at range. Depends how you feel about AoE spells that protect you. Sometimes I kind of feel like they're a bit of a waste on the spell book, but it's always good to have at least one of them, either the fire, the ice, or in technically the Grimoire Snap can act like that as it pushes enemies away. But yeah, this is definitely a book that I would put a lot of points into upgrading for sure. I've done a guide already showing how to pick up a really powerful two-handed sword, the Horse Cutter, as well as the Woodsman Labour Axe. So you go and watch that, but very nearby is in fact another Grimoire. You're looking for a location called Waves Crypt Hollow, just here on the south coast. You can't really miss it as you'll see one of the frost seeds. And actually if you hit these frost seeds, you'll walk across the water and be able to get on top of the rock outcrop. You can try swimming through and mucking around a little bit to see if you can get on, but you probably find it really hard to get onto the ledge that you need to pick up this next Grimoire. So either using your own spells or going ahead and throwing some of the pods, make your way through easily, just don't fall in the water. And on the body or next to it you'll find Vesriks Grimoire. I would say this is the worst Grimoire that you can possibly get, as it's very defense minded. You get the Ring of Fire, Ring of Frost, the Veil, plus a parasitic staff. The idea being that you'd be a bit of a mage tank, so it's imperative that you activate the two defensive spells first, the Veil and then either the Ring of Frost or the Ring of Fire. Then you use the obviously parasitic staff to beat on your enemies while they're taking damage also from your rings. But I don't know, it feels like a lot of effort to go through just to kind of prepare and then take on an enemy, and you can't activate more than one ring at a time. The next two are a bit more complicated along to get. One is going to be in the Shatterscarp area, and without giving a huge massive guide for every part of Rangrim's tower, you need to clear out this new dungeon and go ahead and get to the main part where you'll speak to Rangrim himself or herself. If you look around, you'll notice there's this strange bookcase with a doorway, and I couldn't work out how to get in the doorway at first, and then I realised actually there's probably a button somewhere else nearby, and lo and behold it was in the bookcase. So make sure you go and press this button after you've picked up and read Peace and War, and that's why I missed it. I was trying everything on the other stuff because it looked like there was loads more kind of circles to press and stuff, but yeah, so when you're in here, this is where you can then go and pick up the aurochs Skin Grimoire. It's kind of gruesome with all the dead bodies being experimented on from the Dream Scourge. Really powerful though, level 10, 15 and 20 spells here with Blast of Frost, Missile Salvo and Freezing Pillar. Plus Arcane Seal, which gives you unlimited amount of regen for your essence as long as you stay within the circle, making this perfect for a mage that's going to stand their ground and utilise their spells before any enemies come and hit. So maybe a little bit on the frost side of things as you've got two frost spells, but obviously I still think that's pretty good as frost seems to be a major weakness for so many enemies in the game, and it does seem to be like one of the most commonly used as well. So you've got Missile Salvo, obviously like I said that ball will just fire loads of missiles at an enemy if it's close enough. Then you've got Frost Blast, which is good close quarter control. Then you've got the Freezing Pillar, which can do massive amount of damage if you get it aimed just right on an enemy. I do think you need that little bit of extra armour though if you're going to be trying to stay within the bounds of the Arcane Seal. So maybe better equipped for a spell sword if you're using like a really good high quality medium armour. It does rely a lot on frost damage, and there's definitely arguments to be had that you're better off with like a greater elemental Grimoire that hasn't got any kind of uniqueness to it, but it does have a good more majority in spread in terms of powers. But at this stage of the game, when you've only maybe got 1.5 or 2 zones left to explore, I actually think this book is one of the best, even if it does have 2 frost powers. And no, I've not forgotten, here it is on the map, all the way to the northeast. Just above Shark's Teeth, you'll find the Ringworm's domain. Definitely worth pointing out, bring Yatsli with you, as there's a bunch of the rocks that are hidden by a spell that only she can break through. In fact, I'm pretty sure this acts as its side quest to get stuff from Yatsli. Oh yeah, I don't think she can train you until you complete this one, but I think it's also part of the main story. But for sure, it's a massive dungeon, it's a massive area, it will take you a while to get through. You'll be beset by a whole bunch of skeletons and mage skeletons at the early stages. As always, make sure you go for any of the wizards or priests, so they don't either spawn in skeletons or re-heal anyone. There's a whole bunch of parkour and going up certain places to get access to more of the areas. And you're basically picking up the remnants to replenish the statue. You come across spiders to fight as well. Lots more shadows, spectres, and a final fight against some really powerful skeletal mages and wizards and stuff at the very end room. I might try and do an individual guide for this because it might be worth it, as the dungeon's so big and like some of the pieces that you need to find might need a little bit of extra help. But yeah, I do remember now, it is part of the main story because you need Ringgrim to get you through to another underground dungeon or ruins area where you're going to be partaking in some trials, and that decides the fate of Shatterscarp before you move on to the next zone. And then next up we've got Lara's Grimoire, which I'm not a big fan of. You find this one in Galawain's Tusk. It's to the northwest of the map at the Living Archives, or directly north just past the Ash Forest. And that's quite a trek from where you start out on the map in Galawain's Tusk, so not something you'll be doing necessarily straight away. As a trader you can go and buy some stuff from though, here on the left hand side. Then otherwise you need to climb up the side of the building where there's some scaffolding to gain access. Now you can go through the building like this, or instead actually just keep climbing up. Jump on top of this little pole here. I'm not going to cut it or edit it because people get annoyed with me when I don't show you exactly everything you should be doing, instead of just letting you work it out for yourself at some points. But there you go, you can climb top. You have to take care of some of the Dream Scourge, and in a chest on the altar will be Elira's Grimoire. It has got obviously really high powered spells, level 10, 15 and 20, with the big one being the meteor shower that rains down obviously meteors doing lots of fire damage. It's got Anora's Pool as well, which I do like, and to be honest I do quite like the freezing. Maybe I was being a bit too harsh saying I don't like it, but I guess this spear here, it does explosive damage with its hits, and I just feel like sometimes I want all just pure magic, I don't want summoned weapons. It just feels a waste when I've already got maybe some really good one-handed swords and stuff. Last thing to note, obviously you will need again that 4 levels in the Grimoire Mastery if you want to unlock the meteor, or otherwise you'd have to buy it and separate it yourself. But because they are all quite high level spells, I do notice that the cooldowns on them are quite long as well. And the meteor shower, the actual bombs that fall are relatively slow compared to some of the other stuff that does quite high damage, so a lot of the time the enemies will just move out of the way. So if you are going to use this spell, you want to use Anora's Pool to keep him in place, or go ahead and use the missile, or the ice missile first, and then maybe use the meteor to see if that can get them, if they've been frozen in spot. And so out of all that, I actually prefer old Cuaras' Grimoire. Yes, it doesn't have as many high powered spells, but I think that's probably one of the better Grimoires to use, given you'll get it about midway early game still relatively, and if you upgrade it, it can just carry you all the way through with good amount of elemental powers. And as said, a quick note on some of the other books that you can buy. Obviously it all just fits on your playstyle, what you find you want to be using. There's Grimoires that will give you all elemental powers in fire or just frost. I never really fully recommend them in case you do come up against an enemy that has got resistance, but yeah, they can be fun for sure with more unique builds that you're going for. I do think the Book of Great Elements is something good that you could use. Don't go ahead and buy it, but just upgrade it if you find it early. I wouldn't go for Sparks because it comes with the Grimoire Snap and the Spear. I would actually go for Storms though, because it does give you that Blizzard Storm, and it's got Crackling Bolt in it as well. Crackling Bolt's really good if you get the right kind of gear where you're just doing a huge amount of damage flying between enemies. You can level up some of the skills and abilities in it that'll increase how many times it jumps between enemies too. So that's a really good one because it's got at least 2 elemental powers there. The Grimoire of Rime is all frost damage. Again, so many creatures like obviously the Sporlings are resistance to it, and a whole bunch of others as well. So yeah, if you was going to buy a book, I would go for either the Grimoire of Storms, Grimoire of Greater Elements, The Grimoire of Entropy does have a parasitic staff as well as corrosive siphon, and it does have a black bow, which is a powerful bow that will do high poison accumulation. So that's something a lot of the magic doesn't do, is poison. But again, I'm just not a fan of any kind of book that means I've got to spawn in 2 weapons when I've already probably got some decent ones. The Spellblade does have the Spirit Lance and the black bow as well as Grimoire Snap, but for the same reasons I'm not a big fan of that one either. But for sure, a lot of these books you'll find out in the world much more in abundance. You don't necessarily have to buy them, and for that reason it could be really interesting to give them a go and see what they're like. But yeah, for me personally, Old Cuaras Grimoire is the one that I wish I'd maybe spent and upgraded the most of. Let me know what you're feeling about the books. I am going to be now working on more in-depth guides, taking a look at everything combined, where to pick up more accessories and really enhance each type of mage build, whether it's going to be a spell sword, maybe dual double wielding wands, or relying purely on your Grimoires. So hopefully this video has been useful. Leave a like if it has, and I'll see you at RATBAGGERS for more soon. Bye bye.